You've been praying for guidance. You've been asking God to show you the way. Maybe you've been on your knees. Maybe you've been whispering in your car. Maybe you've been crying out in the middle of the night. And yet, when you quiet yourself to listen, all you hear is all you, your own thoughts, your own desires, echoing back like a conversation with yourself. It feels like God has gone silent, like he's not answering. But here's what I need you to consider today. Maybe you've been wondering why God seems so distant. Why his voice seems muffled. Why every time you try to discern his direction, you end up more confused than before. But what if the problem isn't God's silence at all? What if the reason you cannot hear him clearly has nothing to do with him, and everything to do with what is already shouting inside your own heart? What if your desires have grown so loud and so persistent, so demanding, that they have drowned out the still small voice that is trying to reach you? Think about it. When you ask God a question, do you already have an answer you're hoping for? When you seek his guidance, are you secretly hoping he confirms what you already want? This is not condemnation. This is diagnosis. And it is the most loving thing I can offer you today, because once you see the pattern, you can finally break free from it. And today, we are going to examine it together. Uncontrolled desires create spiritual static. They do not just distract you, they interfere. They jam the signal between you and God, like a radio station that cannot lock onto a frequency because too many signals are competing. Your soul becomes a cacophony of wants that drowns out the one voice that matters most. And here is the painful truth. Until you understand how this happens, you will keep mistaking your own voice for his. You will keep making decisions you think are spirit-led, only to discover they were self-led all along. That confusion is not serving you. It is not growing you. It is keeping you stuck. But that can change today. Today we are going to explore 7 specific ways that uncontrolled desires weaken your spiritual discernment. 7 patterns that may be operating in your life right now without you even realizing it. These are not theoretical concepts. These are real mechanisms that affect real believers every single day. And the reason I am sharing them with you is not to shame you. It is not to add another burden to your already heavy load. This is about awareness, about pulling back the curtain on what has been happening in your heart. Because once you see these patterns, once you recognize them for what they are, you can finally do something about them. Knowledge is power, but only if you're willing to look. By the end of this teaching, you will understand exactly how your desires interfere with hearing God. You will see the mechanisms clearly, and more importantly, you will have a clear path forward, not a complicated system, not a 10-step program, just clarity, a way to clear the static, a way to quiet the noise, a way to finally hear what he has been trying to tell you all along, because he has not stopped speaking. You have just had trouble listening, and today, that changes. So let us begin with the first way desires block discernment. Pay attention. One of these 7 might be exactly what you needed to hear today. The first way uncontrolled desires weaken discernment is through confirmation bias. This is perhaps the most subtle and therefore the most dangerous. When you want something badly enough, your mind starts filtering reality to match your expectations. You start hearing what you want to hear. You interpret ambiguous signs as green lights. You filter everything through the lens of what you already desire. And then, once you have gathered enough evidence, you call it God's voice. You say, God told me to do this, but it was not his voice. It was your desire speaking back to you, wearing a spiritual mask. And the mask is so convincing that you cannot tell the difference. Jeremiah chapter 17. Verse 9 warns us with devastating clarity. The heart is deceitful above all things and beyond cure. Who can understand it? Let that sink in. Beyond cure. Who can understand it? Not even you fully understand your own heart. Your heart lies to you. It tells you what you want to hear. And when a desire is strong, the deception becomes stronger. Your heart becomes an expert at rationalizing what you want. Proverbs chapter 28. Verse 26 adds this sobering truth. Whoever trusts in their own heart is a fool. This is not harsh. This is protective. This is God saying, your heart is not a reliable guide when desire is driving. Your feelings are not facts. Your intuition is not infallible. God is telling you that your heart cannot be trusted to give you objective guidance when desire has already taken the wheel. The question is, are you listening? The second way desires interfere is through urgency. Urgent desires demand immediate answers. They cannot wait. They create a pressure inside you that builds and builds until you feel like you will explode if God does not answer right now. You feel it, don't you? That restlessness, that anxiety, that sense that every moment of delay is a moment wasted. And when God does not answer on your timeline, when He seems slow according to your calendar, you start manufacturing your own answers. You move before He speaks. You act before He confirms. You step through doors He never opened. And then you wonder why you ended up in the wrong place. Why the job fell apart. Why the relationship crumbled. Why the path that seemed so right led somewhere so wrong. Isaiah chapter 40. Verse 31 offers the antidote. Those who wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. Waiting is not passive. It is not weakness. It is an act of profound trust. It says to God, I believe your timing is better than mine. I trust that delay is not denial. Psalm 68. Verse 14 reinforces this with a double command. Wait for the Lord. Be strong and take heart, and wait for the Lord. Notice God says it twice. Wait, and then wait again. Be strong while you wait. Take heart while you wait. God's timing is not your timing. His pace is not your pace. His calendar operates on eternal scales you cannot comprehend. But desire makes you impatient. It convinces you that waiting means missing out. That delay means disaster. And so you rush ahead into decisions God never ordained, into commitments He never blessed, into pathways that lead away from His best. The third way desires block discernment is through distortion. Hidden desires distort how you interpret signs and circumstances. They act like a funhouse mirror, bending reality to match what you secretly want. You read into situations what you want to see. If you want a particular outcome, suddenly, every coincidence becomes confirmation from God. Every open door becomes divine permission. Every favorable comment becomes prophetic endorsement. But it is not God confirming. It is your desire projecting. It is your heart seeing what it wants to see. And the projection is so seamless, so convincing, that you genuinely believe it came from Him. James chapter 1, verses 14 and 15 reveal the mechanism with surgical precision. Each person is tempted when they are dragged away by their own evil desire and enticed. Then, after desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin. And sin, when it is full grown, gives birth to death. Read that again. Dragged away, not gently led astray. Dragged, forcefully, by your own desire, and then enticed, seduced, lured into misinterpretation. Desire does not just tempt you. It does not just knock politely at the door. It grabs you by the arm and pulls you toward conclusions you were already inclined to reach. It drags you toward the answer you wanted before you even asked the question. Proverbs chapter 14, verse 12 adds this chilling warning. There is a way that appears right to a man, but in the end it leads to death. Appears right, looks right, feels right, but leads to death. Your desire-tinted glasses make wrong paths look right. They make destructive choices look wise. They make self-will look like God's will. The fourth way is through internal noise. Competing desires create chaos inside you. When you want multiple things at once, when your desires conflict with each other, when part of you wants this, while another part wants that, you cannot hear any clear voice, not God's, not even your own, just noise, static, confusion. It is like trying to listen to a quiet conversation in the middle of a crowded stadium. Thousands of voices all shouting at once. How can you possibly pick out the one voice that matters? And in that chaos, discernment becomes impossible. You cannot discern God's voice because you cannot even discern your own preferences. Everything is muddled. Everything is contradictory. Everything is loud. James chapter 1, verse 8 describes the result with devastating accuracy. Such a person is double-minded and unstable in all they do. Not just unstable in some things. In all they do, the instability spreads. It infects every decision, every relationship, every commitment. The double-minded person becomes unreliable, inconsistent, tossed back and forth by whatever desire is screaming loudest at the moment. And here is the consequence James implies but does not state. The double-minded person cannot receive anything from the Lord. Their hands are too full of competing wants to receive what God is offering. Jesus reinforced this principle in Matthew chapter 6, verse 24. No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. When your desires are divided, your hearing is divided, your allegiance is split, your reception is scattered. You cannot tune into God's frequency when 14 other frequencies are blasting inside you at the same time. The signal gets lost in the noise. The fifth way desires weaken discernment is through emotional attachment. When you are emotionally invested in a particular outcome, your feelings override your spiritual wisdom. Your heart overrules your spirit. It is as if your emotions stage a coup, taking over the decision-making process, while your spiritual discernment sits helplessly in the corner. You feel so strongly about what you want that you cannot objectively assess whether it aligns with God's will. The emotion becomes the evidence. If it feels right, it must be right. If you want it badly enough, it must be from God. But feelings are not revelation. Intensity is not confirmation. The strength of your want does not prove the rightness of your want. Romans chapter 8, verses 5 and 6 lay out the contrast with crystalline clarity. Those who live according to the flesh have their minds set on what the flesh desires. But those who live in accordance with the Spirit have their minds set on what the Spirit desires. The mind governed by the flesh is death, but the mind governed by the Spirit is life and peace. Two kingdoms, two orientations, two outcomes, death or life, anxiety or peace. There is no middle ground. Galatians chapter 5, verse 17 reveals the ongoing battle. The flesh desires what is contrary to the Spirit, and the Spirit what is contrary to the flesh. They are in conflict with each other, so that you are not to do whatever you want. Did you catch that last phrase? You are not to do whatever you want. Your wants are not the final authority. Your desires are not the deciding vote. When your emotions are controlled by fleshly desire, they lead you away from the Spirit's guidance. They pull you toward decisions that feel alive, but lead to death. The sixth way is through fear. Fear of losing what you desire blocks your ability to surrender. You cannot hear God say no when you are terrified of losing what you want. Your hands grip so tightly to the outcome, so desperately to the prize, that you cannot open them to receive anything else. Even if that something else is better. Even if it is exactly what God had planned for you all along. Fear makes you deaf to alternatives. It makes you blind to better options. It convinces you that this thing you want is the only path to happiness, when, in reality, God may have 10 better things waiting for you on the other side of surrender. But you will never know, because your fist is clenched, and clenched hands cannot receive. In the Garden of Gethsemane, Jesus faced the ultimate test of desire versus surrender. This was not an academic exercise for him. This was agony. Luke chapter 22, verse 42 records his prayer. Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me. Yet not my will, but yours be done. Notice what Jesus did. He expressed his desire honestly. He did not pretend he wanted the cross. He asked for it to be removed. But he did not stop there. He surrendered it anyway. Not my will, but yours. Matthew chapter 26. Verse 39 adds the physical posture. He fell with his face to the ground and prayed. This was not casual surrender. This was not a shrug of the shoulders. This was face down, agonizing, gut-wrenching surrender. And it was complete. Jesus handed his deepest desire to the Father and said, Your plan matters more than my comfort. Your will matters more than my want. Can you pray that prayer? Can you fall on your face and say, "Not my will, but yours," until you can? Your desires will continue to block his guidance. Your clenched fists will continue to reject his gifts. The seventh and final way desires weaken discernment is the most insidious of all. Unexamined desires replace God's vision with your own. When you do not regularly examine what you want and why you want it, your plans slowly become the plan. Your agenda becomes the mission. Your goals become the goals. And without realizing it, without any conscious decision, you stop seeking God's direction because you have already decided what direction to take. You are no longer asking, "God, what do you want?" You are asking, "God, will you bless what I want?" Those are two completely different prayers. One is surrender. The other is manipulation dressed in spiritual language. Proverbs chapter 19, verse 21 states the fundamental reality. Many are the plans in a person's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails. Many plans. Your heart is full of them. Dreams, goals, ambitions, timelines. But notice, his purpose prevails. Not your plans. His purpose. They are not always the same thing. And yet, without self-examination, you forget this. You assume your plans are his plans. You mistake your preferences for his purposes. Jeremiah chapter 29. Verse 11 offers the promise that makes surrender worth it. "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future." God has plans. Good plans. Plans for your prosperity, not your harm. Plans for hope, not despair. Plans for a future, not a dead end. But here is the catch. You cannot receive his plans if you are too busy executing your own. You cannot hear his vision if your own vision is too loud. The discipline of regularly examining your desires, of holding them up to Scripture, of asking, "Is this from me or from him?" is the gateway to hearing his vision clearly. It is the path out of spiritual static and into divine clarity. So here is the challenge. Here is the question you need to sit with. Not rush past, not deflect, but actually sit with. What desire have you been protecting? What want have you been shielding from God's examination? What outcome have you gripped so tightly that you have made it impossible for God to redirect you? Maybe it is a relationship. Maybe it is a career goal. Maybe it is a dream you have nursed for years. Maybe it is something you have never even spoken aloud because you know, deep down, that bringing it into the light might mean letting it go. Be honest with yourself right now. No one else needs to know. Just you and God. Name it. Because until you name it, you cannot surrender it. Until you identify it, you cannot release it. Until you see it clearly, you will keep stumbling over it in the dark. Are you willing to lay down what you want most in order to hear what he wants for you? This is the hardest question anyone will ever ask you. Because it costs something. It costs your certainty. It costs your control. It costs the comfort of having your own plans. But here is where the paradox comes in. Psalm kolmekumen de Saitsaman. Verse 4 holds a promise that sounds almost too good to be true. Delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Wait, he will give you the desires of your heart? Yes, but notice the order. First, delight. Then, desires. When you delight in him first, when you make him your treasure instead of your means to a treasure, something miraculous happens. He reshapes your wants. He realigns your desires. He transforms what you crave into what he craves for you. The things you wanted begin to morph into the things he wanted for you all along. Your desires do not die. They get reborn. They get sanctified. They get aligned with his will. This is the great paradox of the spiritual life. It sounds contradictory, but it is profoundly true. Only when you release your desires can you truly receive his. Only when you stop clutching can he start giving. Only when you clear the static of your own wanting can you finally hear the voice that has been speaking to you all along. He has not been silent. You have just been too loud. Your desires have been shouting so persistently that they have drowned out his whispers. But what if you quieted them? What if you held your wants loosely instead of desperately? What if you said, God, I want this, but I want you more? This is not loss. This is not deprivation. This is freedom. This is how you hear God again. This is how you find the clarity you have been seeking. So here is what I want you to do this week, not someday, not when you feel ready. This week, identify one desire that you have been holding too tightly. Just one, not all of them. Just the one that keeps coming to mind as I have been speaking. Name it before God. Say it out loud if you need to. Write it down on a piece of paper, and then, intentionally, consciously, with full awareness of what you are doing, surrender it. Tell him, Lord, I open my hands. I release this to you. I have been gripping it so tightly that my fingers have gone numb. But today I choose to let go. Your will, not mine. Your plan, not mine. Your timing, not mine. This is not passive. This is not giving up. This is the most active spiritual work you can do. Surrender is not weakness. It is strength. It is saying, I trust you more than I trust my own desires. And here is the hope that makes all this worth it. Psalm 8. Verse 4 one more time. Delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. When you put him first, when you align your heart with his, he does not leave you empty. He does not strip away your wants and leave you with nothing. He fills you. He fills you with desires that match his will. Desires that lead to life instead of dead ends. Desires that bring you peace instead of anxiety. Desires that draw you closer to him instead of farther away. The surrender is not the end of wanting. It is the beginning of wanting the right things. It is the start of desires that satisfy instead of enslave. It is the dawn of a new way of living, where what you want and what God wants finally align. Clear the static. That is your assignment. Surrender what you have been clutching. Open your hands and your heart. Let go of the white-knuckle grip you have had on your own plans. And finally, after all this time, hear the voice that has been speaking all along. He has not been silent. You have just been too loud. But that changes today. Right now, in this moment of surrender, as you release your desires to him, something beautiful happens. The noise fades. The static clears. And in the silence, you finally hear him. May you hear him clearly from this day forward. May your desires align with his perfect will. May you walk in the direction he is leading, not the direction you manufactured. And may you discover that his plans are infinitely better than anything you could have imagined on your own.